Alright, welcome to another coaching video. Today I'm going to be coaching one of my regular viewers and a decent friend of mine. I think we've had some good interactions. He goes by K Oxide, and he's around the MLB community a lot. Super nice guy. So we're going to be coaching him today. He is a World Series player. He told me he doesn't really have a goal. He just wants to get better in general. Like, he doesn't have a rating goal or anything. So we're just going to help him out with that. But he is a World Series player, which is pretty legit. So as always, we'll start with the lineups because this is important. This is something you can do ahead of time. K Oxide, I'm just going to call him Jackie for the video. Jackie's lineup is good. He's got speed at the top, power in the middle, alternating right, left, all of the things that I talk about. His opponent's lineup is actually super greedy, and I wanted to talk about this. It's fairly obvious to me that he would have been platooning a lot of these guys in his lineup if Jackie had a left-hander on the mound, but he has a really greedy play style, and pretty much everyone in his lineup except for Gary Carter hits righties better, and so he set it up that way on purpose. And I think he would have platooned, like I said, but sometimes they get lucky and face a righty, so this kind of sucks. I personally don't like this play style because I don't like platooning. But it ended up working out for his opponent in this game. So let's knock some things out before we get into the game. I'm just going to play it so we get off the lineup screen. But there's a couple of big things that I think are going to help you out, Jackie, that I noticed that you were doing. Mostly things that you can fix with your mindset ahead of time that will help you in the game, so you can actually work on these things and like convince yourself ahead of time to implement this stuff. The first one is pretty bad, honestly. Is your pitch sequencing is like really repetitive. Like it's it's so repetitive. I actually had to go back and find this stuff and count it up. So I actually counted this up. So when Bob Feller was in the game, Bob Feller pitches 7 innings in this game. You had 23 at-bats where you were pitching to a left-handed hitter. Of those 23, you started your first pitch in those 23 at-bats was a slider in 11 of them, a sinker in 9 of them, and a four-seamer in 3 of them. So 20 out of the 23 times you faced a lefty with Bob Feller, you started the at-bat with either a slider or a sinker. That is way too repetitive. You need to be mixing it up a lot more than that. I understand that those are the pitches that you're probably comfortable with, combined with the fact that you probably thought those were the pitches your opponent was uncomfortable with throughout the game, but overall your sequencing needs some work because it was very, very repetitive, especially with Bob Feller. You kind of sit down and maybe ask yourself, like, if I start the bat with a four-seamer, like, what's the next pitch I want to throw? And you can actually, like, write down sequences that you can follow and then maybe have it on, like, a sticky note next to you. This sounds dumb, but it'll help. And then if you feel like you're getting repetitive, you can say, okay, this time I want to start with a four-seamer, and then what's my sequence going to be? So, yeah, just too many at-bats where you're starting with a slider, you're starting with a sinker. Pretty obvious, especially with a pitcher like Bob Feller, who has a pretty good four-seam fastball because he throws so hard. And additionally, that makes his changeup better as well. The fact that you didn't start a single at bat versus a lefty with a changeup is kind of concerning, but it's something that's easy to fix. So that's the biggest thing with your sequencing. Once you got like into the meat at the at bat, I felt like you were mixing it up pretty well. But your first pitch of every at bat was pretty predictable, especially against lefties. I know it's tough because his whole lineup this game is basically lefties, but you just got to mix it up a little bit more than that. One thing you did really well that I noticed it even seemed like you enjoy doing was stealing bases. You were in your opponent's head a lot and getting a lot of steals when your speed guys were on base, so good job with that. Maybe even try to find some guys that you enjoy using that have better speed at some other positions. Maybe swap out Pujols, or I don't know. It depends on what you want, but you were good at stealing, so stick with that. I liked your combination of Jackie Robinson and Ty Cobb at the top of your lineup, but we will talk about that as well. A couple more things that you need to get better at. Let's see, which one do I want to talk about first? So you need to get better at warming up your bullpen arms. So this is specifically later in the game, obviously, with the bullpen, but you kind of got yourself into some pickles by just not warming guys up. So just make sure you're reminding yourself to warm guys up. If there's even a chance that you might switch pitchers at some point in the inning, just warm someone up just so you have the option. Usually it's good to warm 2 guys up at least, but just warm someone up. Even if there's a sliver of a chance that you take the pitcher out, it's better to have someone ready than to just not warm anyone up at all, because I feel like you got locked into some at-bats in this game just by not warming guys up. So you could prevent yourself by getting in a pickle just by warming guys up more. You can also do it as a mental break as well. I do this sometimes. If I feel like it's a big situation and I need to just chill for a second, I'll actually just go to my bullpen and warm people up, because it allows me to technically pause the game, recollect my thoughts, and then go back into the at-bat. So it's a good way to make a mental break as well. I do it when I'm hitting also. If I feel like I'm off in a key at-bat, I'll pause the game and just warm someone up in the bullpen, because at least it lets me reset my mind for a second. Another thing at the plate that could use some work is you have a lot of guys that get auto shifted, specifically your right-handed hitters. So you were using Pujols and Arenado specifically that come to mind, and in a lot of the counts where you were ahead in the count, you were swinging with no one on base when they were auto shifted. So I can try to find one maybe. I probably should have done it ahead of time, but here's one. Here's Nolan Arenado, no one on base, so he's getting shifted. It's a 2-1 count. I'm pretty sure you swing 3-1 here. Yeah, so in a 3-1 count, I know he kind of put you a cookie there, and there are worse examples of this throughout the game. But in a 3-1 count, when you're getting auto shifted, and considering that it seems like you're pretty pull happy at the plate, you should try to be more patient when you're ahead in the count with no one on base. Because I talked about this in a previous video, but you're technically at a disadvantage when you're getting auto-shifted, especially with someone like Arenado who's slow. And so just try to be more patient when you're ahead in the count and the auto-shift is on, because a couple of times this game you ended up hitting into the shift in a favorable count. I understand you were trying to maybe hit a bomb on a cookie or whatever, but in those specific situations, maybe try to take more. And then the biggest thing that I wanted to talk about at the plate for you in this game was that you need to work on your patience a lot, and there are times to be patient and times to not be patient, and I feel like you weren't taking advantage of the times that would have been best for you to be patient. And specifically, I'm talking about your 1-2 punch at the top of the lineup with Jackie Robinson and Ty Cobb. So when I tell people to be patient, sometimes it's misinterpreted as just be a bot and be up there taking a bunch of pitches even if they're right down the middle. That's not what I mean at all. There are good times. There are times that are better than others to be extra patient at the plate. One of them is when you're getting auto shifted. Another one is when there's no one on base or it's early in the inning and you have someone with a lot of speed at the plate. These are times where you can be extra patient and gain an advantage by doing so. And there are times to not be patient, like bases loaded, 1 out, and you need a sac fly or something like that. But you're missing opportunities, especially with how much speed you have at the top of the lineup. So I went back and counted this as well. You had 8 at-bats between Jackie Robinson and Ty Cobb combined, and you swung at the first pitch in 7 out of 8. And the one that you didn't swing was a check swing on a curveball in the dirt. So you wanted to swing. You just didn't swing. So that needs some work a lot, because a walk is as good as a double most of the time with guys like that, because they have so much speed, right? Especially with how good you are at stealing, like the way you were dancing, the way you were timing up your opponent, even though he knew you were trying to steal. You're really, really good at stealing, and that's a strength that you need to play to. So in order to play to that strength better, you need to be way more patient with your speed guys at the top of the lineup. Swinging first pitch, I mean, technically you tried to swing at the first pitch in all 8 at-bats with those guys. That is just way too much. You just need to be more patient, because people will walk you sometimes, even though their speed, they'll just miss their spot. It happens. And the nice part about those speed guys is even if you get behind in the count, a lot of those guys, when you take a bad swing, can get a lucky single sometimes. So really that's just an advantage that you're missing out on, is to be more patient with the speed guys. So those are the big overarching themes for you. Overall, I thought you played really well, though. You're a World Series player. Obviously, you're going to play well. But now we'll go click through some specific scenarios just to try to get some more educational stuff for the video, and then we'll call it. As always, my DMs are open for you, sir, as are anyone that I coach. But yeah, those are just the overarching themes that I think will help you if you work on those. So let's go to 2432. So here's a situation. You have a runner on, you have Ty Cobb on first, and you end up stealing second base. So there's no one out, and now you're in a hitter's count, and watch what your opponent does here. Your opponent pauses the game. So this is a situation that happens a lot that I don't think people pick up on. So you just created a situation. This could happen with a stolen base or a pass ball or anything like that. You created a situation where first base is open and you're in a hitter's count. And so what your opponent is doing here is he's checking to see who's hitting after Albert Pujols to see if he should just intentionally walk you to set up the double play. So I don't see a lot of people actually pick up on this. Whenever you open up first base, it's usually in a big spot, and your opponent pauses, it's because he's checking your lineup to see if he should walk you. And so by gaining that information, you should then ask yourself, if I was him, would I walk me? And this is different because people are more risk averse to intentional walks than other people. But you can generally get a good idea. So what actually happens in this situation is that you have Cody Bellinger on deck, who is a huge power lefty. And so when he pauses and checks your lineup, you then ask yourself, would I walk me in this situation, given that you're down by 2? And the answer to myself would be no, I would not walk me. And so then you can use that information to see how he's going to pitch to you next. So like I said, it depends on what he is trying to do, and you can actually pick up further on information. So I actually would have been wrong, which is important to note too. Sometimes you'll make the right decision in your mind, but it'll be the wrong decision because your opponent is not on the same page as you, and this just is a game theory thing. But your opponent's pitch selection on the 2-1 count is to throw a changeup in the dirt. And so that conveys information that he was going to walk you. But you swung at it and changed the count to 2-2, and he pauses again. So now your opponent is reevaluating walking you again. So he was going to walk you, but you swung at the changeup, and so now he's probably not going to try to walk you. So you're probably going to end up looking at some strikes in the zone here, or at least on a 3-2 count, he's probably going to pitch in the zone to you, because I think that he's decided that he isn't going to walk you. Yeah, and he throws a slider for a strike. So this is kind of a mind games battle, and it's hard to coach on this because you never really know what your opponent's thinking, but it's important to note that that's a thing. Like, if you take anything away from that situation, it's that you opened up first base and your opponent paused, and that should tell you that he's considering walking you. So it's important to know either way, and it's not a thing that I think a lot of people pick up on. So I wanted to talk about it. All right, next spot is you're in the 7th inning in a tie game, and Bob Feller's at 71 pitches. You've been kind of cruising with Bob Feller except for the very last inning. I just wanted to note that this is an inning where it's definitely possible that you can make a pitching change. I understand that your pitcher's spot is going to come up in the bottom of the 7th, but even if you just put in a reliever for a couple outs, that's still fine because you're so late in the game. Like, Feller's already given you 6 innings. That's really good. And so you need to at least warm someone up. This is what I wanted to talk about, something that you need to work on. You end up pitching this whole inning without warming anyone up, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, because you went 1, 2, 3, but there are definitely a lot of situations where you would make a pitching change in this game, especially if he gets runners on in this tie game. And so I would have liked to see you just warm someone up just in case. So I wanted to talk about that. I'm actually right where I wanted to be. So this is something I talked about in the very first coaching video I did that you did actually really well in this play. I wanted to give you a huge compliment on this play because this is exactly what I talked about in another coaching session. So we've got a lazy fly ball to right field where if you take a direct angle at it, you're going to end up jogging, and this can lead to bad animations. And so what I was talking about in the previous coaching video is that if you have enough time to get to the ball, make sure you curl around behind the ball and run into it from the back, because that'll give you the best opportunity to not get screwed over by a bad animation. And this is exactly what you did. You ran all the way around, to the back of it and curled it around and caught it from behind, and you didn't end up with a bad animation. So very nice job there. That's something that I talk about a lot. Just wanted to point that out. So I can tell you're watching. So nice job. All right, here's something. Bottom of the 7th inning, nobody on base. You pinch hit with Babe Ruth here. I don't actually think that Babe Ruth was the best decision to pinch hit here. There's probably 3 reasons. I'll just start going into them. But it's the 7th inning, not the 8th or 9th, so it's pretty likely that your pitcher spot gets up again at some point in this game. And so I would like to save Babe Ruth for maybe a more high leverage situation, since you're probably looking at least 2 more pinch hits here. Additionally, your opponent just put Kenley Jansen in just now, and Kenley Jansen is one of the best relievers in the game, so it's pretty likely that he leaves him in. And so given that Babe Ruth hits lefties better than Christian Yelich does, and given the fact that you're probably going to face a righty in this situation, and given the fact that no one's on base and Yelich is faster, I think Christian Yelich is the better pinch hit here. The last reason that I don't like the Babe Ruth pinch hit here is because there's no one on base. This Babe Ruth card is what we call a PS card. Not because it's for the postseason, but it's because he's a pants shitter. If you get into the right situation in the game and you pinch hit with Babe Ruth, your opponent's going to be shitting his pants instantly. So given that Babe Ruth is a pants shitter, and there's no one on base, I would have liked to see Christian Yelich here instead, because in more layman's terms, there's probably a higher leverage situation later in the game where Babe Ruth will get you more value. So would have liked to see Yelich here instead for a lot of reasons. But I understand you're probably thinking it's 1 home run away from pretty much winning the game because your opponent's struggling to hit, so I get it, but I think Yelich was better in this situation. Here's a really advanced tip that I wanted to spend some time on, because this is something that I do that I don't see literally anyone else do sometimes. And maybe this comes from real life, just watching a ton of baseball. But there are opportunities where you can actually deke people out in this game, and it's because jogging animations are a thing. So unless you're playing a really, really, really good player who's played a lot, people aren't necessarily going to know how far they hit a fly ball off the bat, especially in a park that has a deep outfield like the park that you're playing at. So let's watch this play at normal speed, and I'll talk about what I would have done in this situation. So you hang the slider and he rips it to left center. So given this ball right off the bat, there's no way you're going to end up catching this, right? The nice part about this year's game is that they actually give you a ribbon which will show you where the ball is going to bounce after it hits the wall. So the ribbon shows up here. And so here's a situation, once again, I don't see anyone doing this, but I'll do it, and I think it's really valuable information. So here's a situation where you have the ribbon. You can actually deke your opponent out because he has runners on base, and he's not going to want to leave second base until he's sure that you're not going to catch the ball. So what you can do is you can take your center fielder and you can actually barely move the left stick, and you can purposely jog to right here. So this is really high level. I don't expect you guys to do this right away, but it's just something to think about. I wanted to talk about it. You can take your center fielder and you can purposely jog until this spot and put yourself in position to catch the ball off the wall, but it'll look like you're getting a jog animation into catching a fly ball. So what this will do is your opponent might think that you're going to end up catching this ball on the fly, and then he'll send his runners back, or he won't leave the base until right away. Your opponent didn't actually end up leaving the base anyway. I'm pretty sure it was just too tough to read off the bat, but this is a situation where you can further deke your opponent by just jogging to this ribbon off the wall, because what's going to happen is he might think that you're going to catch it, so his runners are going to hold, and then you're in a perfect position to just field the ball off the wall. The game actually rewards you with really good animations as well. If you're sitting perfectly in the ribbon, they'll get the ball into the cutoff man extremely quickly if you play it right off of the wall ribbon. And so it's just an opportunity to kind of deke your opponent out. Once again, high level stuff. Not expecting you guys to implement this right away. It's very niche as well, but just something I wanted to bring up just so you're thinking about it, because it's something I would have tried to do. So once again, you can deke your opponent, make him hold his runners by jogging to the wall ribbon, and making it look like you're going to catch the ball, pretty much, since a lot of the lazy fly balls are caught by jogging animations this year. So, yeah. Immediately after this, you intentionally walk someone to load the bases, and I just wanted to talk about your defensive setup afterwards. I think the intentional walk is fine, given that if this run ends up scoring, it means you'll be down 7-3 and the game's probably over anyway, so I don't think this runner matters a whole lot. Setting up the double play is pretty good here, I think, but what you end up doing is you load the bases and bring the infield in. I don't actually agree with this. There's a lot of situations where if your opponent grounds into a double play, if you can trade the 2 outs for the 1 run, I think you're still in a good spot. If you're only down 5-3 going into the bottom of the 8th, by bringing the infield in as well, you're taking away a lot of ground balls that would have been double plays that are going to get past the infield. So I would have liked to see you keep your infield back here, if nothing else, just to allow for more double play opportunities. So wanted to touch on that. Skipping ahead to the top of the 9th, this goes back to warm someone up. Wagner is really tired. He's like in the yellow, like pushing the red. And after Francisco Lindor, your opponent has a righty in, which I believe might have been Willie Mays. Regardless, with how tired Wagner is, this has to be Wagner's last at bat, is Francisco Lindor, because Wagner's good against Lindor because Lindor hits lefties worse, but with how tired Wagner is getting, your opponent's PCI is growing very much. So I would at least like to see you warm someone up again and give yourself the option to go to a righty if Lindor got on base here. And if you notice your energy, it's actually the reason why he gets so many foul balls in this at-bat. This at-bat ended up being like a 10-plus pitch at-bat, and it's entirely because you're in the red for energy. So your opponent's PCI is just so huge that their timing doesn't even really matter that much. The game's going to give them a lot of opportunities to foul the ball off because their PCI is just so gigantic. So you didn't even have anyone warming up in this situation, which is a mistake, because there's no way you can let Wagner pitch to the next guy if the next guy gets up, especially with Wagner in the red energy. 2 more things, and then we will wrap it up. 41-40. So, Ted Williams hits a single, and you end up pinch running for Ted Williams with Ichiro, which is the situation I talked about in the last coaching, kill 2 birds with 1 stone. You can do a defensive replacement and a pinch runner at the same time. So I actually like this move a lot. I think it's good. However, you need to understand what information this move conveys to your opponent. So technically, the runner on first doesn't mean anything because you're down by 2. So when you pinch run in this situation, it's telling your opponent one thing and one thing only, and that is that you're attempting to steal to get out of the double play. And so what happens is, if your opponent's thinking, he'll understand that your entire goal with this pinch run, if you were a smart player, is that you want to steal here. And so you actually end up running into a pitch out, and you get lucky in that he throws to the wrong base in a rundown. But you need to understand that your opponent is entirely aware of what you're trying to do in this situation, because the only reason you would pinch run when technically this runner doesn't matter at all is if you're trying to steal to get out of the double play. So he actually pitches out and catches you, but you deke him out and he throws to first instead of second. So you could have easily ran yourself out of the inning there. If you're going to pinch run there, make sure you're running in a favorable count to run. Make sure you give your opponent more than 3 pitches to kind of tip his hand, stuff like that. So you really could have screwed your inning. So to me, as a top-level player, the fact that you pinch ran there is screaming to me that you're going to try to steal. So I would have been slide-stepping every pitch, maybe try to pitch out, something like that, because that's the only reason you would do it. There's no other reason when that runner doesn't matter. So I think stealing there is so risky. If you're going to pinch run and you feel like your opponent's onto you, it's better just to not steal. It sucks, but getting thrown out there is really, really bad for you. So that's pretty much all I had to say. Those were the little things that I wanted to go over. Once again, just recapping the overarching things for you to work on Work on your obvious sequencing, specifically with Bob Feller against lefties. See if you're doing that anywhere else. Write down some new sequences on sticky notes and stuff. Make sure you're being way more patient at the plate with your speed guys, and get better at warming up pitchers late in games. So, nice walk-off, sir. Great game to send me. I love Ernie Banks so much in this game. Well done. Way to get the victory. Like I said, if you have any more questions, let me know on Twitter. My DMs are always open to you. And if you made it this far and you're interested in coaching yourself, follow me on Twitter. Tweet out and at me so I can follow you back, and then we can talk in Twitter messages. So I appreciate y'all watching this coaching video, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.